So welcome back, everybody, to today's podcast, Chasing the Dream. I'm Ethan, host of Chasing the Dream. I am so thrilled today to have a guest on the show that has graced us with his presence. So, welcome, Jason. I'm just going to do a little intro, if that's okay, on
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jason Ellinger, who is the co-founder of Beard and Bowlers Production, a nonprofit video production company. What do? They help nonprofits and purpose-driven brands to generate more revenue and create greater awareness through the power of storytelling. Their mission is to share impactful stories that inspire others to action. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Welcome to the show today, Jason. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for your patience. I know we had some hiccups in getting here, but we finally made it, and I'm happy to be on, and I'm happy to be talking to you right now.
So I mean, obviously nobody else knows this, but the way that I kind of learned about the amazing work you're doing is I started stalking you on social media. And I was telling you that I've been checking out all your videos and all your stories and your posts. And the thing that resonated most with me from literally your very beginnings back 2007 and before was how important values are to you in terms of your family, your commitment to your family, your employees. And I'd love to kick things off if you were okay with it and just ask where that came from.
Values, it's such a great question because a lot of the times when I first started on LinkedIn, I was working with a copywriter who would interview me once a week, and then kind of summarize what I'm saying into a digestible format that was readable for LinkedIn. So cat's out of the bag. That's where I started. Now we handle that in-house. But I'd read the post and I'd be like, wow, this. I say this 3 times a week on a call. Like, how did you do this? So it was very in my voice. But then some of the times when they'd hit me with a prompt like, talk to me about family and values and stuff, and I'd give them the ideal from my mind, and I would read it back and be like, okay, this is too perfect. We need to add a line in there that says, I strive for this. This is the goal. This is what I strive for, or some sort of caveat, because I don't want it to be too real or imperfect. Because um, uh, when we even talk about values, if you ask my family, like I'm always working, right? So even though I have my son here today, he's in the other room. He's on the iPad being good, but I feel like there's a lot of work, and that's what you have to do to build a business. And if you don't feed it, it will shrink. But I always strive for the ideal, and the ideal for me personally is God, wife, kids, business, and that's the order. And it doesn't always happen that way. It's just you kind of have to work to make that priority. But I understood that that's the priority that it should be for most. And once you have that in line, everything else kind of falls into place. So that's something I constantly work towards and work at every week, because it's not like, oh, he's got good values, he's done. It's like he's got a compass that he has to strive towards, but at least knows that direction. So I won't give you, not to take away all the credit that you've given me, but I appreciate it. But I will say that that's something that I strive towards daily, and uh, the work culture, as far as work values go, just treating people the way, and it sounds so cliche, but the way you want to be treated. Because I worked so long in corporate, and then like even worse when I was working as a hard news photojournalist and was in that corporate realm where it was just like legit about all the ratings and what the other stations are doing, and like um, even had bosses that were retaliatory, multiple bosses, and like had to learn the corporate lingo to CYA when you're replying to an email and saying like, as per my previous like all of that stuff that happened in corporate. I did not want any of that in Beard and Bowler. I'm glad I learned it, because sometimes clients hit me with that and I have to like channel back to my days of corporate.
Yeah.
But and then we typically don't work with those clients anymore. But I did not want that to be the place. This past year, we're like, oh yeah, Christmas and New Year's off. What do we do as far as paid holidays? What can we afford for like 12 employees? And then I'm sitting there Christmas Eve, like, wait, I still have some gifts to get. what kind of Scrooge makes their people work on Christmas Eve? And I'm like, you know what? Let's add Christmas Eve to the holiday list too for beer and bowler. Like, let's make that a universal thing because why I don't want to be here Christmas Eve, so why would I want anyone else to do that? So just making that universal across the board, just talking about uh, recently today, having a conversation with even overseas contractors that are working through the night, like how do we set it up so that they have as many paid holidays off as we do? Obviously, they may not celebrate Independence Day because that's America's thing, right? But they may have another holiday that's important to them. So let's just, if we have seven, let's give them seven, and then they can choose which ones they celebrate and which ones to take off. So just thinking about people as humans and making sure that we take care of them the way I'd want to be taken care of, down to the health benefits, finding the best one, getting that, and then making sure our employees have access to that as well. Um, I wanted to make it a place that I would like to work at. Um, so yeah, in short,
It's always fascinating to me to hear the person who has transitioned from a lengthy period of time in corporate into and then kind of evolved into starting their own business and then the lessons that they take away when it comes to
yeah.
what you experience. And it's fascinating because you were kind enough to share that, don't ask other people about my values because I'm working all the time, but my values are God, wife, children. What's your experience been as you bring in employee number 2, 10, 12, and then 20, and then 30? How do you make the values that are important to you and therefore the values that you're building into the company, values that your people can buy into? Like, because I would imagine on some level you have to find them, you have to interview them, you have to bring them on board, and then you just have to keep reinforcing the values. So what's been your experience with that?
The comment on the latter half, what's interesting is I haven't put out a job post for any of the people that work here at all. And that's part of the beauty of creating content. You just attract the right type of people that hit that vibe, and they'll follow us on social ahead of even reaching out to us, which is kind of cool to see because they understand the type of work that we do. Number one, it's it's a really good, a really desired position to be in the film industry.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, for Gen Z, it is really desirable to give back, and work for a company that gives back and not just faking it or greenwashing it on paper or whatever you want to call it. And to have like those two industries converge, like filmmaking and giving back all in one, it's kind of a desirable place to be. So I won't even talk to anybody who's not really excited about working here because we get hit with so many resumes about people that want to do not just like, oh, I need a job, I'm out of college, please hire me. It's like I love the work that you're doing. It's always been a passion of mine to work non like give back wherever we can. And just putting out that sort of content has attracted people in and the right type of people. And most recently, we were interviewing three different people because my lead editor Jenna, she was getting to a point of stressing out because the project started piling up. And we interviewed three people, and the team got to interact with them as well. And I said, "All right, which one of these should we hire?" And Jenna doesn't blink and just dry as a bone, just all of them. I want hire all of them. So we ended up hiring all three part time and are gradually moving them into full time roles. But they just all three of them passed the vibe check, and they're meshing together so well, which is so important, especially when you have trips like last week, trying to get to Spokane, Washington, where we have a 3 hour flight delay, causes us to miss our next flight. So after a 3 hour flight delay, we fly for 6 hours and then have to rent a car because there's no spend an hour looking for a car rental that'll go one way because no one wants to go one way to Spokane. And then we drive 5 hours across the state, arrive 45 minutes before call time, then start our 10-hour workday of shooting for this very important client. And then lost luggage there and back, missed connection flights there and back. When you have 36-hour days like that where you just have to pull through and it's not every day, you want to be with a team that is going to handle that well. And I was so grateful to not just have multiple plane rides with people that we like and enjoy, but also to have a 6 hour road trip unexpectedly through the night to get where, and then to make know that we can count on those people when it is time to actually do the work if stuff goes awry, because travel is just a mess these days. That's not every day, that's the exception, but the exception will happen. And during that exception, knowing that we have a solid team that, they came back to the office this week and like, man, I missed you guys. Like, what? Like, how much time did we spend through? We just went through the fire. We were bonded by travel trauma, like, and you still want to hang out. Like, that's when you know you have a good team that is gelling together. So I just kind of sat back and reflected and was super grateful that just putting out good content was the ones that attracted the right people, and even just people in our circle knowing what we do, identifying other people and being like, you need to work here. Man, that's, I don't even know the question, but I hope that answers it.
It does. It does. And I mean, there's so many, we share so much kind of like background in terms of our prior experience in corporate and then taking it over. And it just, for me, it was the story of my daughter was very, very little, and I was working for a multinational news corporation in New York City and coming in at 6 in the morning so that I could leave at 4 or 4:30. And the rest of my team members, who were somewhat younger than me, were going out, playing soccer or rugby, drinking all hours of the night. And then they would make comments when they strolled in at 10:30 a.m. and left at 7 p.m. And I would walk out at 4:30 and they'd say, oh, working banking hours. And it was, it
Yeah,
just, I never forgot that. But
yeah,
you said something really fascinating,
noise.
the whole being on the road together and traveling, which that to me is also is awesome about wanting to spend time together.
Yeah,
But earlier on, when you were sharing that interview process, you really said a few things that hit me that I was hoping I could ask, like, kind of follow up. First of all, you included your team meeting the candidates that you were considering. Then you ask, who should we choose out of the three? And Jenna says, all of them. And you don't say, well, we can't afford it. You say, okay, Jenna, we'll do that. And then you find a way financially to bring them in all in, and then let them be a part of your team. I think maybe that's a really powerful way that you build values, if I'm picking up on that.
yeah. Now that I think about it, maybe. I think just I try to empower people at every turn that I get, and giving them credit and applauding them for things that they do, even if I largely do 90% and have them like put their input in until I'm able to do 80%, then 70%. Like, I encourage them all the way and tell them great work. And then I also hand things off to people before they are ready for them. Meaning that we call it, Jonathan, who was just rushing around here to set this camera up, baptism by fire, where we'll kind of turn to people, whether it's like a pro bono shoot or like a very low stakes shoot. And I say, guess what? You're directing today. And it's not like I won't be there or another experienced director won't be there over their shoulder, but it's they are ready. I see that they are ready or will be ready by the end of today. They don't know they're ready yet. And then I'll throw them into the mix and say, hey, it's your turn to shine. You have this in you. I've seen it before. I've heard your suggestions. They're great. Now it's time for you to take over the directing of this B-roll that we're doing here. And then other people will chime in with their suggestions too, but like, you do that 2 or 3 times, and now I have people just flying out on their own to Hollywood next in 2 weeks to just direct a 2 day shoot without me for a pretty incredible nonprofit for homeless youth. So knowing and with like confidence too, like they're going out there like, yeah, I got this, no problem, like and just giving them and empowering them and encouraging them all the way to see what I see inside of them. And I think that's one of my superpowers, is just seeing like a little bit ahead of the curve. And I noticed this during stupid things. Like, we were at Cheeseburger in Paradise, my wife and our friends, someone would score a touchdown and they would catch the ball. I would cheer just a half a second before everybody else in the room would like realize what was happening. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this a superpower? Can I see into the future? It was like a half a second, right? But like, I started leaning into that and realizing that that was one of my gifts, that I could see that, and I could see people where they couldn't even see it themselves of like where they should be. And even people that have come here for like, I want to be an editor. Well, you have a pretty great personality, and you're not scared to go up to people and talk to them. You know what you're going to do? You're going to be an appointment setter, and we're going to go to some networking events and work them together. And like, oh no, I don't know if I can. It's just like, I'll give you two lines to say. You can watch me for three of them, and then I want to send you out and do it yourself. And like just watching that process of the person like realizing they have another skill set in them that's like recession proof, essentially, sales was like super rewarding to see them come together and light up. So trusting in the team because I've pushed them and empowered them all the way. So why not have them look and be like, hey, they're coming in and be like, yes, a great job. And get to go on set a few times, press record on camera, we'll be done. That's what they think. You know the real of we're going to be flying across the country, spend a lot of time together. Do you want to sit next to them on a plane ride for 3 hours and then another 4 hour ride and then the hotel and then the way back and then still want to have lunch with them? Do they know what I'm asking with? Does this person pass the vibe check?
Right.
Between that and my wife, who is our professional vibe checker, and no industry experience, but just has that sort of radar of like who who's going to mesh well with this personality. Are there any like traits that are going to manifest themselves in 3 to 6 months that we should watch out for? And the little intuition that she's learned to trust within herself,
Mm.
where I think our hiring process has been so good so far. I don't know how that'll scale at 50, 100 people if we get to that point. But as of right now, it's working really well. And, hiccups along the way, but, nothing that we can't handle. So,
And if somebody were to literally just snag that snippet to all those video editors out there or in the room, what you just said over the last 2 minutes or so of the buzzwords, right? You're telling the story and you get so excited talking about your people. You can just see viscerally your like whole, your nonverbals and smiling and just getting really excited and your superpower. But the word cloud is really unbelievable. And it's trusting your people and empowering them and delegating them and cross training them and seeing in them potential that they can't even maybe see in themselves and having the faith in them to go out with them and set them up for failure, no, success, yes. That's but it all stems from, it sounds like you saying, I have faith in you. You obviously have faith in your wife, hiring people based on behaviors and traits, not a job description. And I can't tell you, you may just kind of dismiss it as, oh, yeah, we do that. I talked to 100 companies, 98, 97 don't even feel comfortable with the idea of not hiring off a job description.
hmm, hmm, that's funny. It's I often thought that when we're ready, like I could hire people out of the drive-through just because of the way they interacted with me for 30 seconds. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing here, dude? Like, you are far too talented. Let's go. I got a job for you.
Get in the
Uh,
car.
I have
Get in the
I have
car.
get in the car. Yeah, that just a little bit more creepy. No, but we we're not at that level yet, but yeah, we interview together, and then just her intuition was one of her gifts and superpowers, and just being able to see some things like, oh, let's talk about that more. And it was her uncle that said to me, her uncle was like the pastor at the time of the church, and he turned to me. She didn't know this until like I think a few weeks ago. He turned to me years ago, and he said, you should bring your wife on interviews. She has intuition that you just don't, and she will see things that you don't. And I don't know if he meant in regards to hiring like female employees or whatever else to keep a safe marriage or what like pastoral duties, but like what that advice I took was I started bringing her, and we early days we would set up camp. We'd put out job descriptions early days, and we before we were making content or content was even a thing, and we'd set up shop in like Brooklyn, New York, because all of the talent seemed to converge there. And we'd meet people from all around the world. I'll just never forget this Australian guy, Ed, who's like, I'm gonna be a director. And I just loved his whole personality and vibe. And there's another guy who I was like, "What do you think about him?" And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "What do you mean no?" I'm like, "He just got back filming Kodiak bears in Alaska for Discovery Channel. Like, how do you even build a resume like that as a cinematographer?" He has the personality of a damp towel and he spilled his water all over us. It is a no for me. And there were a few times that wasn't always the case, but there were a few times where she was like, "Oh, I like this person." I'm talking through not just Beard and Bowler, but multiple companies and the iterations of what Beard and Bowler was, and even other companies I've started. Like we would sit there, oh, this person's great, but there's just something off, and I can't put my finger on it. And 3 months later, that manifested itself when we started seeing problems arise in this employee, and she was quick to, there was something, but I liked her, but there was something off, and it manifested. It took like 6 months later, and after that point and multiple other affirmations, that's when her intuition kind of like built into instinct and just like, or vice versa. I don't know which one is more powerful or ingrained in you, but that's when it started like really manifesting to like, oh yeah, that wait, what do you see? And then now everyone's like, well, what does Ashley think? What's going to happen here? Like, do they pass the vibe check? And not everybody does, unfortunately.
That's
Um,
talk about a powerful gatekeeper with that
yeah.
kind of highly refined um perceptiveness. That I would imagine that's really powerful. There's something that I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. It's in your business model. Your business model is you help nonprofits and purpose-driven brands to create their awareness through the power of storytelling. You could have earlier on in your career pursued, as many video production companies did, corporate work. I'm curious what the conscious decision was to focus on not-for-profits and purpose-driven brands, because that obviously maps to your value construct.
Oh, Ethan, you want a story today, don't you? You want a story. Okay, let me see if I
Well,
can
you
make
were the
this.
one who said every story needs a problem.
Let me see if I can make this as concise as possible because in 2007, when I started, the company was AJ Video Productions.
Yeah.
And my wife was very popular and outgoing, and she had many friends. So I started by filming her friends' weddings, just myself and my camera. And back then, I started my business. I thought a write-off meant the government paid you back all the money you spent at the end of the year. That's how naive I was. So I just bought all this company and put it on credit, all this equipment and put it on credit cards. I'm like, I'll get paid back end of the year. That was not the case. So yeah, years later we'll talk about that issue. But we were filming people's weddings. She helped me out. She was second camera even sometimes with no camera experience, and I cut my teeth on doing these weddings for free, and then would get back to the editing bay and be like, "Oh, that was horrible." And that's how I became a really good editor to compensate for my mediocre shooting skills. And so I never forget my first dollar, got $270 folded up in a church bulletin, and I was like, wow, this is it. This is why we spent $20,000 plus on equipment. This is it, my first dollar here. And we kept going for a while. And I didn't realize there was this little thing called sales and business development and marketing. And I had to do all this stuff. I'm just like, yeah, the jobs just kind of come when you build your name, they find you, and that's how it works. And it wasn't how it worked. So I struggled for a while getting little pockets of money and through some of her network and friends as well. Um, she had one that just bounced around to these high paying corporate jobs so she could get like a few thousand here, more here, or just whatever. And she brought me along everywhere. So I got to work with like Tresemme, Diesel, Condé Nast, L'Oreal, like all of these major brands like to do video for them. So I broke into the corporate world per se, just like doing stuff for her and her company, shooting and editing. Then I got big enough budgets to hire cameramen that were much better than I, and I could just do the post production. Eventually, I got to the point where I could hire editors, which was a huge, huge thing, but it wasn't consistent. So I did the corporate thing, and that is what led me to my day job with the news, which was I had the 4 a.m. to noon shift. And I don't think anybody envied me about leaving. When it came time to leave at noon, yes, unless there was breaking news. But I had the 4 a.m. to noon shift, and it was fires, shootings, stabbings, murders every day. And at that point, I started meeting with my guide. That was my problem of no consistent revenue and no purpose. And I didn't even know that was my problem at the time. Um, and my guide and my Yoda basically said to me, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to make money and shoot video at the same time. Great. Okay. What do you want to do though? I don't know. I'm a business, make money. Let me rephrase this. If money wasn't an issue, what
Yeah.
would you be doing all day, every day? And I thought about it and I'm like, no one's ever asked me this. What do I want to do? Does it matter what I want to do? Even like, how can. So I thought about this guy I met when I was working for the news on the corner of Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard and Rosa Parks and whatever streets are named that way in the hood for some reason, just a lot of stuff goes down on them. And this was like on the corner where all the stabbings would happen in Paterson, New Jersey. And there was this guy, 70 years old, had a full-time job and decided to start his own community garden. Dirt wouldn't eat, was so toxic, nothing would even grow. He had to bring his own dirt in. Eventually created this beautiful space on this corner, this very bad corner, and across from 2 burned down buildings where all these crimes happened. And something funny happened. They rebuilt the buildings across the street and took care of the fire damage. They have a community fridge now across the street. People know to leave Willie's Corner alone. So the crime decreased in that area. And I'm like, this guy's 70, has a full time job, and just did this. This is the story I would tell all day, every day. And my guide said to me, "Wow!" At this point, touched because I went far into depth on this story. It's like, that's a great story to tell. I will tell that story too, and thus became my business partner, Matt. Then he added, "The problem is there's no money in those stories." So which was a good problem to have because money is not where you want to start. It's where I was starting, and he had to pull it out of me. That's not where you should be started. And we started with why, and we found our why that way. And then we kind of went with that why. How do we tell Willie's story? How do we get a livable wage from this to do this all day, every day? And that was the goal, just to be able to tell stories like Willie's all day, every day. And then we started just doing some research, meeting people, and realizing that those stories exist every day, all day, within the walls of nonprofits. And the ones that not just could afford it, but the ones where it would have the most bang for its buck are the ones that had sit down galas or galas with a sit down fundraising component to it. And we kind of stumbled into this formula backwards by reading Donald Miller's Story Brand and realizing, hey, there are 7 specific elements to each successful Hollywood movie. How do we reverse engineer that for real people storytelling within the walls of nonprofits? And we did it by accident the first time. We just knew off of instinct. We couldn't articulate what was wrong with the video when we had an assistant editor do it, but we knew by instinct this should go here and this should go here, and we should hold tension until the very end and not show the kids till the very end. And when we did that and we saw the result that one night where they got like $100,000 increase year over year from last year's gala, and the responses were just like no dry eye in the house. We're like, okay, I think we have something here. And we can still accomplish our mission, tell stories that will inspire other people to positive action, but at the same time, find a way to do it sustainably and make this like our full-time gig without having to bow to corporate all the time for the dollars. So that became our niche. And it's funny because we still work with corporate, but because of the content we put out, it attracts the right type of corporate. And they'll say things like us that I never had corporate say to me before when I'd be begging for jobs within corporate, like, hey, we have good story too. It's for a pharma company, but I promise it's a good story too. And they're good people there. And what they're doing is reducing the opioid crisis by installing like, wow, like it, they would say, would you consider working with us? would you consider working with us as a like the corporate companies I used to beg to, you know?
Right.
That was a whole shift. And then it became like real to us, like, okay, we got to go full bore after like the positive storytelling that's out there in the world and nonprofits in particular. And people, a good sales trainer told me, people always ask, but do you do this as well? And then it's
Mhm.
almost even more powerful to them because it becomes their idea. Oh, I bet you they haven't thought of doing a client journey for a corporate company before. I gave them this idea and now it's their own and they run with it even harder. So it was an interesting flip that happened. But we're still about 70-ish% nonprofit and 30% corporate. Not financial wise, but like project load wise. So
Right. Right. There's this kind of cacophony of noise in my head as I'm listening to you because the idea of consciously choosing to have most of your project work in the not-for-profit space, but yet companies are now aware, or they're starting to be aware, that they need to shift the focus from shareholder value to stakeholder value. And they need to shift the focus from pure profit to profit with purpose. And so they also need to attract this kooky, crazy thing called Gen Zs. And Gen Zs don't want to buy from you or work for you unless they see that you're doing really, really good stuff in your communities. And all of a sudden now, at least here on Chasing the Dream, I have to be honest with you, Jason, I'm starting to hear some business owners saying, well, we know that we have to also have values. They don't say the way you are, that every part of you and your wife and you and your partner, Matt, everybody out there, Matthew Carpenter, co-founder with Jason in 2016. But so many business owners haven't come to where you are. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say they're talking about values. They're talking about behaving differently, but it's kind of like steering a battleship. It seems to
mm,
be taking a long time to get there.
yeah, the larger the company, the longer it takes to, and it may not even be possible. But I do remember like speaking for companies like Deloitte and they would have this whole and we didn't speak to the employees at Deloitte. They had this whole program for kids that they wanted to mentor and bring up. And like a true millennial Gen Zer was like in charge of it. And he's like, we are really doing good here. And it's almost like as if their employees would not let them fake it and just like they really wanted to make a difference. So they steered the ship and they're like, we want you to speak to these kids because they need to see other business owners and business owners of color and people that are just doing it the right way talk about their story and see someone who they can see themselves in for the future. So there's these entire sections of companies that are like run by millennials and Gen Z that are like really, really trying to steer. And if they have to fight too hard to get it to be genuine or enough attention, then I truly believe they just quit and go somewhere else
Yeah.
that does have it. And it's that important to them. And we've run up against this too because we would work with not within Deloitte, but like CSR companies or CSR sections of companies, which for those who don't know, corporate social responsibility, that is their department to make sure that they are ethical and they are giving back to nonprofits the right way. And we'd come in like, hey, why don't you sponsor a nonprofit's video? And do you need some help with? Sorry, he's come in to help with, ask for help opening his grapes.
Don't eat this one. I don't like it.
Okay. All right. Go back in your my office, okay, bud? You good?
Yeah. In my tent?
In your tent, yes. Tent, grapes, Amazon Kindle. That's all a kid needs.
Life doesn't get any better as man who's delegating, living, talking, the walk, walking, the talk. You did delegation, you did effective communication, you did coaching. Well, but it gets back to, and I know that we were talking about corporate and them having a soul and all that good stuff. But
Yeah.
one of the things that resonated most with me, kind of tracking you for a few years now, is your post about it is hard to be a father and a business owner. And that moment to me, that was golden. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Golden to me too, because sometimes that doesn't work. And he would just be sticking around for the rest of our podcast, whether we like it or not. Um, but yeah, no, it's I appreciate that. Um, we were talking about companies. Okay. So we'd get in
Yeah,
with CSR. We'd be like, there's these nonprofits that need these stories told the right way, and you could come in and be their hero and sponsor the story that they need told. And they'd be
right,
like, oh wow, that's such a great idea. You know what would be even better if you told our story of how we are so generous and good, and maybe get some shots of us volunteering at the local soup kitchen. And we're like, people gonna see through this. Like, okay, I mean, sure, you can get those shots, but like, this is why don't you do anything that's like selfless enough? And it's not even selfless because with the right copywriting, you could tell the story of a nonprofit, post it on your own social, and be like, this nonprofit is everything we stand for and we believe wholeheartedly in what they do. That's why we've become a partner with them to help them
right,
produce this film and then beyond and volunteer and this, that, and the other. Like with just a little bit of that could be your best performing piece of marketing all year because it's a really good story, altruistic, authentic, and it's not self-serving. It's not come on down for
right.
9.99 sort of vibe.
Right. And you said it. I mean, and it's so fascinating to me to kind of hear you as somebody who's kind of you and Matt have grown this business in a pretty short period of time and it's kind of growing. But the idea of transparency and people can see right through when you're not sincere about creating a great place to work and hiring great people and caring about your people. You can say all the right things, but that's just marketing. And it's
Yeah.
it's funny because you're talking about the why. And you've said it a few times today, Jason, the why you do what you do. And you talk about every story has a problem. And I seem to recall you talking about earlier in your career, when you were a photojournalist at a news station, being asked to interview the mother of an 11-year-old who was murdered and being asked to interview them, and you saying, this doesn't feel right. And so,
Mhm.
so many people are asked in corporations and organizations to do things that just don't feel right
Yeah.
that I'm
Yeah.
fascinated or curious by how you kind of take that all and you share that value with your people, because that seems to me like a really powerful story.
Yeah, and to comment on the first half of that, the taking uh, we've done it to ourselves, right? It's our BS meters are through the roof, but there's scientific proof as to why. And we are hit with almost 3,000 pieces of marketing per day. And that is not New York City. If you're in
Right.
Manhattan, that could be as many as 7 to 10,000 pieces of marketing per day, which is unbelievable. But even as I'm sitting around here, I'm looking at DesiView, Logi, Pelican, Epson, whatever brand that surge protector is, Feel World Monitor. Like I'm hit with marketing all around me. I don't even notice it because our brains have this defense mechanism to just tune it out because we'd be overloaded if we absorbed every single thing that was around us. And I haven't even walked into the other room or let alone outside or driven in my car past all the shops here in Ridgewood, New Jersey. But our brains had to develop these defense mechanisms so we wouldn't be overwhelmed with information. But there are two things that we found that cut through that noise, and one is storytelling, and the other is authenticity. And if you can combine the both of those um, to where people are hearing a story problem first, where they can self-select and see themselves as this person who the guide is solving the problem that they have, that's when you get their attention. Um,
Yeah.
so those are the things that cut through the noise. And then in terms of like even just what I was putting out there for the news, it was that was my low point for the news is interviewing that mom who lost her son and just kind of weeping, and the reporter just like tweeting on her phone, just like not even looking up, nudging me, hey, go get the mom. I'm like, what? Like, go interview the mom. And for me, that was like I think I even called my assignment desk producer, like, how do you get interviews at a funeral or at a shooting where it's fresh? At a shooting where it's fresh, it's easy. All of the other stations are there, and you're just gathering content, you're following them, you're sticking your mic out there, and they're like, "Tell me what happened. Do you know the Vic? Do you know this? Do you know?" And like they're just the mom's just trying to keep it together, right? It's like, "I'm sorry, this is all I can do," and it's like, what am I doing here? And, 2 months later, I'd be at a funeral and of a kid who got mauled by a pit bull, and just like I remember setting up shop there. It was me and one other guy from another news outlet, and we were across the street to show respect or to legally be allowed there. And we're filming people coming out of this funeral and going, and I'm looking through the lens, and I see my old best friend from high school coming out, and I'm filming her coming out of this kid's funeral. I guess it was apparently like a second cousin or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be seen here doing this thing that I'm doing. Like, I'm not adding any value to the world. In fact, I think I'm doing more harm than good because like the whole story is like, gotta be afraid of your dog now. What am I doing here? Like, is there a way to tell a story that's going to help with the root cause of said problem instead of just, I don't know, being a professional tattletale is what I felt like sometimes. So, uh, yeah, that was a turning point, and even just sharing that story with the people that come here, I think they understand the why we don't do that sort of stuff or exploitive stories or anything political or politically charged. Like it doesn't heal the world. It draws us further apart from each other.
And you talk about something so powerful, where you talk about the two kind of things that went together for you, which is the power of the storytelling and the authenticity. And it's interesting to me because you just said at the end of that, if I picked it up correctly, and then that's why we tell the story you just shared, kind enough to share here with your people. I think a lot of business owners forget that it's important to kind of share the why with their people, to kind of allow them to buy into the history of the company and where you started from as the founder, you and Matt, with the values you have, so that other people on your team can buy into it. And I think that a lot of business owners don't even stop to think about their people needing to keep having reinforcement of, I made the right choice coming to work here. He shares my values. I share his values.
Hmm. Yeah.
And and in fact, I have no other way to say that. So I was actually just going to say it might make sense if we kind of end here, because that to me is such a powerful statement. But I did want to ask you a question. So, like next year, if I look at the calendar, if I'm not mistaken, that makes 10 years with Beard
Yeah.
and Bowler production. So wait, when you
Yeah.
think about where you've come and then where you're going, well, what are thoughts? What does the future look like for Beard and Bowler Productions?
Um, it's funny because they say don't compare yourself to others. Comparison's the enemy of progress, all that junk. But like recently,
Uh-huh.
what I've heard that's been most helpful is don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to where you were last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
Mm.
And so often the quickest gauge is like we've grown, and the one that I always have back pocket is like we've grown from this much in revenue to this much and doubled this year. Blah, blah, blah. That's our gauge of success. And then like even just recently in the past few weeks, just sitting back and being like, uh, I'm here working at home. There's a team, a few people in the office doing some sales work and some post production. And then Jonathan and Danny are out in New York City and Gowanus on a construction site getting some on a production. And just this team is flying out next week. This team of two is flying out next week. This team of two is flying out the week after that. And like being super grateful for people who can just handle it. Like whenever we flew out to like Hollywood, we have to hire local cinematographers because we're not going to fly out with all these lights and stands and sandbags with us. So it makes sense to hire local, support the local community, and they have their own gear that they can bring. I would have to do that interviewing. And like recently, I just passed that off to one of my guys, and now he just handled two interviews, picked one, negotiated a fair day rate for the people out there with gear included, and like it's just being handled without me. So like I have this moment of gratitude, like just for the team that I built and how far we've come and all the things I said, I can't pass that off. And then I passed it off and they crushed it and they're probably doing it better at me and with more capacity than I have to do it. Um, So I've just been super grateful for the team and the people that I have around me, and then measuring the success from this team that I had to like the teams of the past that didn't pass vibe
Mm.
checks or even go through them. Teams, the employee that tried to steal a check and hold it as ransom until he collected half of that, even though he didn't put 50K into the business, but he did a little bit more work, so wanted to take half of that check. Like going through all the memories I have of bad employees and these documentaries I'd sign up for and like, yeah, we'll sign a contract where you don't get paid now, but you hire the whole team and I'll give you a percentage of the profits, and then just run off and not say anything and sell everything and keep all the money to himself, or the clients that just still owe me 10 grand to this day. Like not having processes, not having like the proper contracts in place, not having the right team or the right people in place, like just to see where I was a few years ago to where we've come now, like that's how I'm starting to measure progress, and then just realizing like the money will come. It comes and goes. It will come now that we have the processes that we have. But stepping back and being grateful for other things aside from money has been like where I've been lately.
What a lesson for other people who are aspiring to start equally successful businesses is the pursuit is not the money, that's the result of
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
everything the right way. But one way to wrap up is to say, paraphrase what you said much more eloquently than I ever could, which is measuring the success with the growth of your people. That to me is just really kind of puts a cherry on the sundae of the conversation. So
Mm.
thank you. Oh, forgot to ask, Jason, if folks were interested in reaching out to you and saying, I want to talk to you about how you can help us tell our story, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Beardandbowler.com, we have a contact page, and as soon as a message comes through, everybody gets pinged. Or any one of our socials, it'll eventually get to us through our socials in the DMs at Beard and Bowler. BEARD, like the beard on your face, AND, and Bowlers, BOWLER, .com. That'll be best way to get in touch with us, probably the contact page there. But you'll see us soon. You'll see us in your socials soon. We're working on something really exciting about to drop next week, where it'll be a lot of content across a lot of different platforms, more so than we've ever produced before. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I have a feeling people will see us a lot more pretty soon.
I sure get a sense of that. And listen, thank you so much for coming on Chasing the Dream today, Jason. And I promise you, as soon as this video is ready to go, we will be sharing it with the rest of the world. So thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate you.